from St. Ben's. 2012, she graduated in, got a master's degree in museum studies from Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland. And she is currently the intern program coordinator at the Minnesota Historical Society. And she's done a number of internships herself. And April Bondas, who is a senior here at St. Ben's and a history major, who did her internship at the Wright County Public Defender's Office, so a pre-law legal internship. Kayla Forster, also a senior, history and GBUS, and she did her internship at the Stearns County Historical Museum. And our own Laura Hammond, also a graduate of St. Ben's in '05, and the assistant director of the Experiential Learning Office. So welcome to all of our panelists. This is going to be interactive. We're going to ask questions. I'm going to ask questions about particularly April and Kayla's internships, and then we're going to have some conversation with both Leah and Laura, and there'll be time for you to ask questions as well. So we'll just get started. And so I guess first of all, I'm going to ask you a little bit about your internships, Kayla and April. What was your position at? Did your position have a title? Were you working in a particular department?
My title was criminal investigative intern. So I was working primarily with the criminal investigator and also doing paralegal work because the paralegal was on maternity leave. So my internship also kind of served as a temporary fill-in for her as well.
Okay.
My internship was a communications intern, and so I worked more in the business role for the museum, trying to promote the museum and their mission and goals.
And Leah, when you did internships, where were you? What you were interning both times at MHS or?
Yes. Well, I started with like a independent study kind of thing here at the Hain Museum.
Oh, okay.
At the Art and Heritage Place,
Mm-hmm.
and that also brought me to Stearns for a little while just to see how, like a tiny museum, a medium-sized museum, and then it culminated in a summer internship with the exhibits department at the Minnesota Historical Society, researching exhibit background material.
Mm-hmm.
And after I did that, then my second internship there was a few years later in the same department, but I was researching for different exhibits and writing labels for a traveling exhibit that was coming through.
Okay. Good. So, since the history department doesn't require an internship, what were your goals in seeking them out? Want to go ahead, April?
Yeah. My primary goal for my internship was to learn a little bit more about law and get some hands-on experience. Since it was something that I was looking into, I was considering going to law school and planning on being a lawyer, so I wanted to make sure before I did that I knew about what it was going to be like and actually spend some time working in the field and get a little bit more knowledge of it.
Great. And Kayla, your goal?
Yeah, so I'm also a business major, so it is required with that degree. But by working at the History Museum, I was able to incorporate both majors, which I liked.
Good. Good. And did you get kind of what you hoped for out of that?
Yeah.
More knowledge about, whether or not you wanted to be a lawyer or?
Yeah, for me, it taught me that I didn't want to be a lawyer, which was helpful, good to know before I went to law school, but it definitely taught me a lot about the field and showed me options that I had never really considered of different opportunities that I could pursue.
Okay, good. I'll let you talk a little bit about them in a minute. Kayla, how about you?
Yeah, I enjoyed my experience at the museum. I learned that it's kind of competitive to get into working in museums, so that's good to consider. But I did enjoy my role in communications, so I might pursue that down the road.
And Leah, when you were doing internships, since you did two, maybe you had different goals, or were they the same goal, or?
It was the same goal because I knew when I was a sophomore at St. Ben's that I wanted to be in museum work and in public history. Through my History 200 class is how I figured that out. And so my goal was I wanted to work at the Minnesota Historical Society. And I used to call it the fortress, and I'm like, I'm just gonna chip away at that thing until they let me in. And so I did that one internship, and then I did the other internship, and then I volunteered there, and then I got a 10-hour-a-week job, then a 30-hour-a-week job, and now 40-hour-a-week job. So I really just kept at it, but I knew ultimately that was my goal, that I wanted to work there. So I just did as many things as possible until they hired me.
Wow, that's great. Persistence has paid off.
Well, and if I could add one thing,
Yeah.
I think about students that do internships. Many times they'll say after experience, gosh, I learned what I didn't want to do, but like you're saying, gosh, my eyes are now open to these tons of things that I didn't know existed. And for internships, it's definitely an opportunity to build resumes and skills, but it's also like what you're saying is that networking opportunity that sometimes in different industries you have to do an internship to get an internship to get a job. And so sometimes you start with this breadth of volunteer experience, and it becomes a little bit more formalized as an informal internship, and then maybe you do it for credit because it fulfills a graduation requirement, or maybe not, but then hopefully that leads into this full-time paid position. And so I love the idea of students sort of even going from a shadowing experience to these varying levels of engagement with organizations, and different organizations too, thinking about our Bennies and Johnnies that are out in the world. You two will be very soon, you are already. I mean, even being able to do an informational interview to say, what are you doing now? I'd love to learn more about how you got to where you are. And they can tell you about some of those experiences that they've gotten to have of volunteer and intern or shadowing experience. And you can learn a little bit more about their path and kind of take yours and make it your own. Just wanted to add that piece in.
So I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about like what was a typical day or a really great day at your internship?
For me, I didn't really have a typical day.
Mm.
The only thing that I did is every morning I came in, I usually had a stack of case files on my desk with notes from different lawyers of things that I needed to do, either contact a witness or go to the jail and talk to this client, take a statement from him. But throughout my days, I did something different every day. Sometimes it was going to the jail to talk to people or informants. Sometimes it was delivering subpoenas to people that we need. Took a lot of witness statements from people, went to crime scenes, got basically anything that the lawyers would need ready for a case for them.
And when you're talking about it, I mean, it sounds like a lot of things that you were doing. How long was your day? Like, what was your schedule like as an intern?
I interned mornings because I also worked at a golf course during the day, and that started at 11. So I worked Monday through Friday from 8 to 11, so that it was able to not interfere at all with my work schedule. And I was still able to work full time at another job.
Yeah. So that's a good thing to point out, is that you can do an internship, and that doesn't mean you have to give up your summer employment to do it. They seem to be very accommodating. And Kayla, how about you? What was a typical day like for you?
So my internship was fall semester. So I worked about 12 hours a week on Mondays and Fridays, from about 11 to 4 or 5. And so usually a typical day was, in the beginning, obviously getting used to the organization, but then as I grew within my role, usually I'd come in and I would be responsible for some social media posts, so I would do that. Usually I would be trying to promote things in their museum store or different events we were having. And then I would, of course, check my email and work on various projects that they would give me. So sometimes I was working on writing a blog post or creating a media list or creating a marketing calendar. So just different projects that I would do throughout the time.
And what about, Leah, you've got now that you're internship coordinator, you could probably talk about the typical day of many different kinds of.
Yes. We have internships in all of the different departments, and so it would really vary on which department you're in, if it's education or exhibits or human resources or the IT department. Their interns are everywhere. And but I think they're all doing really great work that's really helpful to their supervisors too. I like to think that, you know, sometimes interns have this, you know, like you're just a gopher, you're just fetching coffee or you're sharpening pencils or something, and it's not like that at all. We have to, like, you know, knowledge the intern will be expected to gain and like skills that he'll be able to use later on. And those are required in all the position descriptions. So it's not just like this person, like in their job description is going to be just sitting in a cubicle doing nothing. Like you're actually doing worthwhile work for the supervisors. When I was an intern, I spent a lot of it in the library researching. And that was one thing I decided that I didn't want to do. It's like, you know, I've done that for several years in school. And it's cool to find out the things that I was learning that would eventually be in an exhibit, but then they're just in the exhibit and you have no control over them anymore. And like, I want to like talk about it and share the stories and be like, I wrote that label. And my supervisor kind of crushed my dreams one day when he was giving a tour in the galleries and he goes, nobody reads exhibit labels. I was like, why are you having me write them? But it was an eye-opening experience where I learned that I still wanted to work for the organization doing something, but I didn't want to be that behind the scenes because I thought it was very isolating. And I didn't like that my average day was going down to the library and sitting at my table and like reading cool letters, but not talking to anybody. And so it was kind of a lonely internship, but I still liked the work and what I learned from it at the end of the day.
Well, it's kind of interesting that you find these things, right, what you don't like, but being on the inside gives you a chance to see what other possibilities there are. So even if the internship, an internship is a limited duration, but it can, you know, actually you take that in, what you learn there, you know, has pretty important repercussions for what you then pursue.
Well, and as a person on campus who has the pleasure of working with organizations on behalf of you all, I think one of the things that I hear often is that internships are a test run for possible future employees. And so you are getting your own experience with what's possibly out there, but they're also saying, I wonder how, you know, these folks could be a part of our organization long term. And so as we're developing those relationships with organizations, know that we're encouraging them to identify those high-level kinds of tasks. Those typically I'll do a presentation and bring in all kinds of funny memes and stereotypes in pop culture that talk about internships as this sort of low-level kind of experience. That's not what we want for you here at St. Ben St. John's. We're having conversations to say, you know, let's think about what are those kind of high-level tasks that you can not only benefit and learn from, but also be able to put on a resume and talk about as you're networking and moving on to grad school or next steps. And so one of the benefits, I think, of an academic internship is that you have the support of someone like myself, you have the support of faculty members that would be in this room to be able to help you not only access those high-level tasks, but to create learning goals that we then hold you accountable and the organization accountable for helping you to access those experiences. So not to plug academic internships, but I do think that's a way that we can help to make sure that you're getting a high-quality experience that leads to future awesome opportunities.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that, you know, you could think, right, that you want to be a lawyer, but if you didn't do the internship, you could go through law school and then I think you probably figured out somewhere in law school, but you've already spent a lot of money then. This way, you've actually, you know, and you might think, oh, you know, I want to do museum work, and then end up, you know, not really knowing the full range of possibilities until you get to your master's degree program. So it seems like internships are really an important way of seeing how, in fact, there are broader possibilities, even if you think you know absolutely what you want to do.
Especially as a history major, when the question I got all the time was, so are you going to be a teacher? No, I don't want to be a teacher, but I want to do something with it, not just like, oh, well, that was an easy degree to get out of college with. I hated that comment, like, oh, history and psychology, people just pick that to pick whatever. No, some people really like history too.
We were kind of talking about this earlier, in that a lot of the skills you're learning and that are becoming a part of you because of the classes you're taking, being able to read lengthy text and then summarize and be able to share with people what it is that you've learned, the writing skills, the public speaking skills, those are things that employers are looking for across the spectrum of careers. And so you are getting the things that you need to be a successful employee in whatever field you end up going into, whether it's business or museum science or law, whatever that might be. You're getting the skills you need. It's about being able to sort of brand yourself and talk about how you have those skills and abilities. So an internship is a way to test it out, but then to take that next step of being able to talk about your skills is important as well.
And it is interesting, as we've been doing our own research on what our graduates are doing after they leave St. Ben's and St. John's, how few history majors are in fact teachers. They're doing all kinds of things. You know, so if you weren't at our career expo in the fall, you know, the CEO or owner and founder of Boom Chicka Pop was a history major, you know, the popcorn company. We have a history major who is in a historical preservation architect firm, a city planner. I mean, so we lawyers. I mean, we've got all this on the website if you wanted to look and see. But gee, I mean, history majors get some pretty incredible and interesting jobs that they, you know, in places. And jobs that they enjoy that utilize their skills. So.
Did some of you have paid internships versus unpaid, and did you notice any contrast if you did both between them, or quality? What's any impact that had on experience?
I was paid for both of my internships, one through a research grant from St. John's, and the other one through the internship program. For my first internship in 2008, there was not an internship program at MNHS, and we just went right to my supervisor and like, hey, I want to do stuff for you. And I've got this, it was supposed to be partially researching for my thesis, partially researching for them, but then my thesis topic changed. And then the second time, there was an internship program set up, and we have some unpaid internships, some paid internships, and then we have a stipend available. So I got the stipend because the person running the program at the time said, you should really apply for the stipend. So I did, so I got paid for that. But from what I can say, between the unpaid and the paid internships that we have now, there is zero difference in like the duties or the things that they get to do. It's all the same. It's just, well, this program had some money to pay you and this one doesn't, but the work is still of equal quality.
And mine was unpaid because I was working for the government and they didn't have a ton of money to throw around, but I don't think it would have affected anything. They still made sure to make every day worthwhile for me and make sure that I had things to do and it was interesting and that I was learning what I wanted to learn about the internship.
I actually had an internship before the museum at Catholic Charities, and it was doing human resources work. So I had actually gotten a stipend from your office to do that. And then at the museum, I had gotten a stipend as well from the museum.
Well, we see a variety of paid and unpaid experiences. I'm thinking about the Irma Wyman internship at Himmel on campus. So that is a paid summer experience that any of you could think about and apply for. We've had one student went out to New York and was at the 9/11 museum. That was an unpaid experience, but what a phenomenal piece. And so for her, she had the financial capacity to be able to do that, but not everybody can afford an unpaid internship, especially out in New York City where the cost of living is so high. That is something that our office is really trying to gain funds for. We had a grant last year that offered unpaid interns the opportunity to apply for funding, but programs like the Jackson Fellows Program, another program through the Experiential Learning Office, you as a student can propose and apply to be part of the program, and it offers a paid summer internship and then some leadership development as well. One of the sites is out in Brookings, South Dakota, and it's at the Children's Museum there. And so that could be, I mean, stereotyping, right? But that could be a fit for history majors. But we also offer the opportunity for you to express an interest in a particular social justice or civic engagement oriented area. So it could be government, it could be, you can look at the list of past sites, but students have worked in a variety of nonprofit and government agencies, and the summer fellowship is paid and you get to propose the site. So that could be another opportunity where you're talking about paid versus unpaid experiences. That's one. Another that I think of for possible history majors, possible anyone as a Johnny Jr., we have the Lindmark Fellowship, and that's an opportunity to live on campus all summer long, based on donor requirements, it's only open to Johnnies, but you have the opportunity to explore professional ethics in whatever field you might exist or want to work in. And so $7,000 across the summer, you are expected to live on campus, so some of that money would go toward room and board, but you'd work with a faculty advisor, and the goal is at the end of the summer you have a thesis quality paper that you could then present or publish as a part of your professional career. So those are a couple of opportunities that are paid. Looking at the breadth of internships, there are some that are paid, most that are not working in nonprofits or the government entity, but we're trying to raise those resources here at St. Ben's and St. John's.
I wonder if we could like transition and talk a little bit more about like some of the nitty gritty of your internship. What did you like best about working at the public defender's office, April?
I liked talking to clients, specifically the ones that were in jail. That was my favorite part of my day, was going to the jail and talking to our clients, because they always had interesting personalities and we always got very interesting information out of them, whether it was for our cases or for other cases. But that, for me personally, was what made my job the most interesting.
And how about you, Kayla, at the historical museum?
Yeah, I liked a variety of the projects. I really enjoyed doing the social media. I also had a fun project where they wanted to start up a blog, so I kind of got to be the one to initiate that. But then they had wanted it to be history focused. So I actually, we have a research center there, so I got to go to the research center and pick out a topic that actually is related to the History Museum. So we have a sword that goes all the way back to the Civil War, so I got to research it and write up a blog about it. And then I just saw that they actually were interviewed about the sword, so I think it kind of paid off.
Very cool. Cool. And Leah, I mean, you might, it sounds like, researching the library was not your favorite part of the internship. But, maybe you have it, I wonder if in your capacity now as the internship program assistant, what do you like about working with interns in that way?
I like working with interns because, especially, we have a lot of people who think, oh, you only have to be a history major to get an internship there, and that's not the case. And I think one of the reasons I got my job is when I was in school doing my internships, I was placing all my friends in internships in my head. Like, when you're in elementary education, we could put you in the education wing. Like, you're computer science, we put you in IT. Like, you're an English major, we'll put you in the press. Like, I was placing everybody in my brain. And so I like seeing all these different kinds of majors and personalities coming together in this one place, but yet they all leave with a greater understanding and a greater appreciation for history, because it is the historical society. But we do surveys at the end of every semester where we ask them to gauge, would you rate your knowledge of history like average or above? And it's like 50% of people, and it goes to like 99% of people by the end of their internships. So even if they're down in the basement, we're running IT help desk requests, they still get that appreciation for history through that work. And we also have about monthly meetings where all the interns come together, and there is some sort of professional development or history-based meeting. Like, you can do speed networking with staff, we'll go on a collections tour, we'll have a discussion about museum issues that they read about the week before with somebody from the Department of Inclusion and Community Engagement. So dealing with museum issues, and you'd never think about these things unless you're talking about them. And so it's always cool to see that progress from that first meeting when no interns are talking to anybody, and to the end where they're they do informational interviews too as part of their experiences, and one of them interviewed Steve Elliott, the executive director of the Historical Society, and it was just he didn't talk his first day, and now he's talking to the head guy. So it's cool to see that progression and that growth in just 3 months too.
I really love, it suggests how seriously and important the Minnesota Historical Society views interns, to have a position devoted to them, and also providing them with that kind of professional development. That is really that seems extraordinary to me, Laura. You know,
Yeah.
this is exactly what we want.
Exactly. For an organization to invest the amount of time and resources is ideal that there's a cohort experience where not only are you learning in your niche area of IT or collections or whatever that might be, but that you're able to share that experience with other interns and create this cohort, this network of people that you meet and learn from other areas as well. And I think the fact that you're investing shows that you care about your interns and likely want to see them become a part of the organization long term. So that's definitely what we would want to see. Thank you.
So, I asked you kind of what you liked best about your internship. What did you find most challenging about your time at the Public Defender's Office?
Probably finding something to do when there wasn't something to do. That's something that I found difficult, is that in a real job, you know, you're not going to be busy 24/7 all day, every day. So sometimes you need to learn how, and that's a quality that I've found is very good to have, is learning to keep busy and not always having to be told what to do. You know, your boss doesn't want to have to baby you and tell you the next project you have to work on. So being able to just figure out on your own what the next thing to do, how to keep yourself busy.
For developing that independence and, you know, curiosity. What about you, Kayla, at the Stearns County Museum?
One thing that I found frustrating was that I didn't really get to see results of my work, because when you work in communications, it's about trying to get more patrons and donors to help out at the museum and to give us more donations, things like that. And so I would kind of be doing the behind the scenes things, if it was like creating a flyer, or just trying to get those communication materials out there that would help increase our money. And so it was kind of frustrating because I would do something and then it's like, well, you don't really see the results right away. It takes a long time. But that's just something you have to accept with a lot of internships.
Limited time that you'll be there, as opposed to employment where you expect to kind of continue on and be able to see that.
We get feedback from our supervisors of interns and interns every semester, especially where students are earning credit. And one of the things that our supervisors will often say is that students are waiting to be told what to do next. And so they really see those that excel and set themselves apart as those that take initiative and ask, you know, it looks like this is something that you're working on, can I help with that? Or if possible, it sounds like you're going to a meeting, could I just tag along and go with you? And those are really hard things to learn and figure out that you need to do, but showing initiative and really asking and being willing to take things on, from, you know, the menial to the executive sort of tasks. I mean, you have to build that trust and rapport with the organization so that they're willing to give you those higher level things. And I heard this said once and it really clicked with me. An internship can be the first time that you have to figure out how to succeed without a rubric, right? There's no clear do this, this, and this, and you'll be successful. But an internship is great, and it can teach you how to meet someone's expectations, how to ask for clarification and feedback about what am I doing well, but what do I need to improve upon? And especially when it's an academic internship, it should be a safe space where the person at the site is a co-educator with your faculty member. They're teaching you together, and so there's an atmosphere of mentorship, and you're not expected to know everything. You're expected to ask questions and learn and grow, and so I think there's some support while you're trying to navigate being successful without a rubric.
Was there something you wished you knew before you started your internship, or maybe even as you were looking for internships? Is there something that you wish you knew before you started?
Well, for me, I didn't know when I first got the internship, I didn't actually know that we did need one for the history major. So, I mean, I guess maybe I'm glad that I didn't know that, because then I might not have searched for the internship as hard as I did. But yeah, that's something that I didn't know going into the internship, and then I just did the internship not through the school on my own. I still decided I wanted to learn about the law field a little more, but yeah, that's just something I didn't know when I found my internship.
So that might also be the thing that you know, it was like surprising to you, but like, and in the end, you got.
Yeah, in the end, it
something.
worked out best for me because I preferred doing it not through the school, because then I didn't have to pay for the credit, so I wasn't actually losing any money on it because I was still able to work. So it worked out best for my situation to be able to do it on my own.
What about you, Kayla?
I think they had told me a lot of the tasks beforehand that I'd be working on, and so I knew a lot of the things already. But just going into the museum, it was really interesting to learn about all of the different things that they do, because I had no idea that there was a research center. They actually have interns that can work in the research center. They have people that can work behind the scenes with the exhibits. They also have interns that could work with programming. So when I had applied, I had no idea. I was just applying for the communications internship, but they do have a diverse array of experiences. So if anyone is interested, I have some brochures.
Leah, what do you find students are most kind of surprised about when they, you know, what kinds of things do you think they don't expect?
I think, kind of like Kayla, they have very distinct ideas of like the things that they will be working on because they've all seen the position descriptions as they were applying. But sometimes there's like a several month gap between looking at the position description and applying and then starting the job. And I mean, sometimes projects could have changed between then and now also. But that's one of the things that we get at orientation a lot is I wish I had more time to talk to my supervisor about what exactly it would be that I'm doing. But I think at the same time they also get surprised at how involved their department will be in the field of history too, where like, because we say you don't have to be a history major, and they don't realize how important that department is to like the greater goals that the Historical Society is doing, and so they can see that bigger impact then too, which is nice. And they, you know, so they're not just an intern sitting in a basement somewhere doing something. They can see how they are involved, and I think also they get to see the wider scope of the things that the Historical Society is doing, because staff and our volunteers and our interns are invited to like the staff forums we do where we talk about the things that are going on in the different strategic priorities. And that's always, I always went to those because I wanted to see what was going on, to see what else I could maybe get involved with. And so that's neat to see too. Like they don't realize too that it's, you know, the Minnesota Historical Society is at the History Center in St. Paul, but there's 26 sites and museums across the state that they run, but kind of, I mean, like the people there would be the staff from the Historical Society, but they usually tap into like the volunteers in that area or something, but they don't realize like, oh, it's not just this building that I pass by on my way to a hockey game or something, or like use the parking lot for a wild game. But it's fun to see that they get that sense of the greater scope of things too.
It sounds like too, you know, if you're, you know, maybe you're a computer science major, and you think, well, you know, I'll have to go into a computer science business, but, you know, if you're a computer science major and you like history, you know, why not work at a historical society? Because then you can, you know, do what you're trained in, but also use some, maybe your minor or double major, and be around the kinds of things that you want to be around, right? You know,
Right.
like it's.
Yeah, that was some of the best advice I got here in my first year symposium class, because I started as a biology major, and my professor, who was a poli-sci major or teacher, said, what kind of people do you want to spend the rest of your life with? And I thought, that's a really good way of thinking about what kind of career you want to go into. And so that was when I switched my major.
That's really good advice. Use that. What, April, was there some like surprising, like, and like some great surprise for you, like you didn't anticipate, but like it's something that, you know, you took away from the internship that you hadn't counted on?
I think just like the incredible experiences that I got out of it. Like there were so many things that I never thought I wouldn't have even imagined I would have gotten an opportunity to do. Like I got to go to the medical examiner's office and identify bones for a super high profile murder case. that we were working on. And so like that was something that not many people get to do, something I never would have thought that I got to, just like things like that, these random experiences that you get out of it.
How about you, Kayla?
I think something that I learned is that I think I'm kind of unique with pairing up business and history, and so I was able to find that experience that fit with both majors. And I learned that I really enjoyed working at the museum within the communications role. So if you just find what you're passionate about, then it will work out.
That's great. Really good. I want to also, kind of open it up too, so that you have a chance to ask some questions. So please, if you have questions about internships generally or their particular experiences.
Well, since I've never done an internship, so it's just my own curiosity. When would be the best time to apply for an internship, like within your time here at our institutions? And then, how might you go about thinking through, like, what organizations might I want to intern with? Is there, like, a way to search with my own individual interest, or do I have to search through organizations and read all their advertisements?
So I promise he wasn't a planned question, because I actually have something I want to leave with you all. It talks about from your sophomore year to your junior year to your senior year, what should you be doing to think about and engage in an internship? So I have these all for you to take away, but really, thinking about your sophomore year, now you're sort of entering into this major, and what does this look like? Gaining experience, period. Looking at your student employment position, and maybe you want to transition from one role to another because it more closely aligns with things you're interested in, experiences you could gain. Doing things like volunteering for programs on campus. Community Kitchen is run through our office, so maybe you're interested in different populations where we're delivering meals through that program, or you take a class with service learning and it allows you to experience the community. So the sophomore year checklist is really about exploring what you might gain as far as experience, but who are you and what are you interested in? Junior year, I think, is a critical time for students. Career Expo is something you go to any year, but going there and learning more about alum-oriented companies that could talk about an internship you might have or a job you might have, but being able to ask that alum in a safe space, kind of, what'd you do and how did you get there, and what should I be thinking about? One of the things I love about my job is that I get to meet with students one-on-one, so you and I could have a conversation one-on-one where we talk about what are some ways that I could find an internship based on what I want to be doing. And so there are companies that come to campus through Career Expo and on-campus recruiting, but there are also organizations who post internships in our online system, eLink. We'll get the MNHS positions in there, and we'll post them, and we'll have many others that will come in and ebb and flow in the system. But we also send out a weekly update. You'll see from myself or our student workers an experiential learning update where we try to highlight the paid, the unique, the alum-sponsored kinds of things. And I know every year MNHS is in there as well as many others. And so the Irma Wyman Scholarship or Fellowship was in there a couple of weeks ago. Today, you'll watch for the email now because it goes to sophomores, juniors, and seniors. You'll see the Lindmark Fellowship. We've highlighted the NPR, Gary Eichten Fellowship, something else I forgot to talk about. But there are many ways that we're trying to send information out, but we can also meet one-on-one. And that's a joy of my job, is that I get to do that with students, to try to help you set up strategies to find that internship that you might benefit from. So I have handouts, but I also love to meet with you all one-on-one if you're interested. So
One thing that I can add is, like, for me, I didn't apply for my internship. I didn't need to. I think that's really common if you, depending on what you have as a focus, but if you can find a local position, there's not going to be an application, there's not going to be an internship program. So that's something to think of too, is you might not see a big flyer or an email for an internship. That doesn't mean that it's not there. For me, it was just calling the law office and saying, hey, can I intern this summer? And they said, yeah, absolutely, come in next Wednesday. So like if you know of a business or a company that you think I'd love to get some experience, learn a little bit more about, just call them up, and sometimes if there's not an internship, they'll create one for you.
networking, and actually we have sort of a link on our site that talks about creating your own internship, because it's not, you're so great, you're bold, and I love that you were confident you did that. Not all students know how to do that, so we kind of walk through that process as well. I'm glad you brought that piece up. Network, create positions.
I had to interview and apply for both of my internships, but I kind of did the same thing with Catholic Charities because I went to them, I emailed them. One way that I found really effective is just emailing like your cover letter, introduce yourself, say why you're interested, all of your experiences on campus, and email like the human resources person, and I think that really helps you stand out. So I had emailed them and said, I have a grant through St. Ben's and I'd love to intern for you this summer. And then I went in and interviewed and got the position. And then through that position doing human resources, I realized that that wasn't necessarily what I liked doing. And I was kind of helping out on the sidelines a little in their communications department. And so from there, I started looking at communication internships for fall semester, and that's how I came about the Stearns History Museum on their website. And then once again, I emailed my supervisor my cover letter, and then I was able to go in for an interview, and it worked out from there.
I would say too, since I started before there was an internship program, and I just went through my professor and the supervisor at MNHS, and we just made one. And then the second time when there was an internship program, and I still went directly to them, and they just created a position for me. But that was really when the program was in its early stages. But now, like, if you apply outside of our application period, I can't do anything about it because nobody's looking at that time for an intern necessarily. Unless you were to have contacted somebody and then they would be like, hey, I have this great person that I want to have as an intern. They'll be like, okay, wait until the next cycle and create a position description and make it official. So it's going through the right channels. Like the other day I got this great cover letter and this resume from this person, and it was just like, check back at March 1st, please. Like, because it has to be fair, and we do have a large pool of applicants. And he wasn't applying for anything in particular. He just said, you know, he's graduated now and he would love the opportunity to come in to interview for an internship. And it's like, there's like 25 internships, so I don't, you have to be more specific than that and then apply during the right periods. And I'd also say follow the instructions on how to apply because we say like, please send us, you know, a cover letter, resume, and a transcript, and then any other additional materials required by each individual position. Some will have like a writing sample or a work reel, and some won't have any. And we'll just get people saying like, I'd like to apply for this internship, and they don't give us any more information. Like, please send us your cover letter and resume and transcript. And sometimes they just don't, and so then we just don't count them in the pool. So keep up on those emails too.
And it sounds like, I mean, internships are becoming more and more competitive. More and more students want them. So, you know, when someone lays it out that these are the things you need to do, you know, that would be the first part of kind of your interview is, are you providing what they've asked for? So, and I know that, you know, if they're asking for resumes and you've never written a resume before, the Career Center is really happy to help you do that. And of course, they offer lots of workshops, as the History Department will also be doing next month, specifically targeted to helping you talk about your history skills in looking for jobs or internships. And you know, our Facebook page in the History Department, I'm always putting up internships that I think are pretty cool and interesting. You know, I'm posting them there, so you know, look at the Facebook page for our internships. So, does anybody any other kind of last things that you wanted to tell us about, or I see you have like brochures about the program to give out.
Yeah, if I could do a little spiel.
You bet.
I brought some, like the list of the current internships that will be available for summer. And then this is the program brochure, and there's some annual reports if you guys care about annual report statistics. We have over 2,000 interns and volunteers across the society, and they do like 18,000 hours of work a year. But we do have, like this brochure here tells like the different departments that the internships are in, and it also has the next few application periods. So it'd be March 1st through March 20th for summer, and then July 1st through 31st for fall. So it is kind of planning ahead, but it takes a few months to interview and place the interns, and then to get the supervisors, because we do like a phone screening, and then an in-person interview with the supervisor, and then the supervisor ultimately makes the decision. And so sometimes it does take a while, but I do have like the information on before summer. You know, you're applying in March, and you would know by May. So there's a couple months in there, which I know can be a longer period of time compared to some other like smaller institutions where they're just like, yeah, you can be our intern. But these are the ones that are available so far for fall. I'm still collecting position descriptions from the supervisors, and some of them have repeat ones every semester, so I'm trying to like dig at them a little bit, like please give me your position description so when I go to things like this I can talk about it. But there's like 10 or 11 different positions here. Some, like for history majors would be great, like Fort Snelling does summer camps with kids, that would be like working with kids, and if you like dressing in historical clothing outside in the summer, you can work at a couple camps they have there, or manuscripts acquisitions is always a good one. One that's nice, but it's also really competitive, is the World War I Daybook Assistant, and that's in the collections. We're gearing up towards this big World War I exhibit we're going to have in 2017 that will start at the History Center and then travel around for a while. But they're working on this thing called the Daybook, where it's going to be like, you know, different things highlighted from the collections that have to do with World War I, and so that's fun because people think, you know, like history internship, like in the collections, digging with the stuff. So that one's usually pretty competitive, but it's also a really fun internship. But we also have like a special events intern, web design, multimedia, risk management, if you have friends or have an interest in that kind of area, and the IT help desk. You could be my assistant and work in the internship program. So I can leave these and these brochures, and I have buttons and my card. So yeah, there's lots of stuff for you guys to go on it.
I have some brochures too.
Yes.
You mentioned sophomores, juniors, and seniors. A lot of us here are first years, and I'm curious about the opportunities for first years for internships.
I think for academic credit, that wouldn't be an option at this point, but like I said, building experience and using the Benny Johnny network to connect with someone, to do some shadowing, to do some observation. That's a great way to get started. Volunteering at an organization, you know, like the Historical Society or the Minnesota Historical Society, that can be a great way to get started. And an internship can be really formal and it can be really informal. And depending upon what you're looking for, I think you could just start small and do a shadowing experience and then kind of grow from there. Just dabble, experiment a little bit. But as a first year, I think you're in that experimental phase. So try some things.
We accept anybody who's in college. You have to be in school or no more than 1 year out of school. So after you've graduated, like say you graduate and you're like, hey, I want an internship, you can still do it up to 1 year after you graduate. So it's definitely open to first years. It just might be a little bit more competitive to get the position if somebody who is a senior and wants the same one and they might have more experience. But I don't think that should discourage you from applying either, because you might just be the person that supervisor is looking for. You don't know until you apply.
Yeah, I think after your first year would be a great time for like an informal internship like I did. One where you don't necessarily have to apply and there's not a specific outline, you don't have to pay for credit or anything. It's a lot more laid back, and usually those are the internships as well where the supervisor or your boss is pretty lenient with you as well. So it's a more laid back environment, a little less stress, I think.
Any other questions? Well, thank you to all of our panelists. Thanks very much for coming today.